the continent of Africa, that in terms of that, there would be concerts, there would be educational sessions. The East was not just a club, that in terms of that particular space there was, as we said, cultural and educational. So, we would have political dialogues, we would have meetings, we would have political rallies, there would be all different kinds of things that happened. And in some instances, there might be a concert in which the proceeds from the concert would be used to support, a particular cause. At the time we're talking about, we didn't have the issue of political prisoners to the extent that it's a problem or remains a problem now. That, in terms of, if you look at the history and look at, when many folks actually became political prisoners, it was, towards the end, if not literally after the East ceased to exist. But I mean, we were always politically engaged on a high level with local, national, and international formations.
Because Max used to say, everything you do is politics.
Right.
Yeah. Because Max himself, Max was, hey man, that's where I got all of my, oh man, as a young man coming out here, and I didn't go to college, but I got so much from the music and the music people, the Randy Westons and the Max Roaches and the cats who took me in because my father was their friend, It would be funny, man. I'd go and sit on Kenny Durham's stoop up on President Street, and he'd be having a conversation with me, and I said, you talking to the wrong cat. He's talking to my father, asking me questions about something. Well, what you remember in St. Louis, so-and-so? I said, no, I've never been to St. Louis. But those cats fed me, man. And people talk about world music. Shit, world music was happening in 1960 when Randy Weston did East Meets West with Abdul Malik, and playing the oud and with Lee Morgan doing solos on Middle Eastern rhythms and stuff. And still, man, people don't know about that album, But our consciousness and our culture, that's the one thing, jazz was deep into that and propagated that, which too many artists today are not committed to doing, for me, to each his own, but we got our consciousness from our art in many forms, writing and music and dance, and there was a message in all of that.
Mr. Drayton, real quick, are you familiar with Gigi Grice, the alto player, and his efforts to get musicians to publish their own music?
Oh yeah, it almost cost Gigi his life. Because even here in Brooklyn, during the early times, in the late 40s, I think it was sometime, there was a place on Putnam Avenue called the Putnam Central, which was some, I don't know, it's like a mansion. It's there between Irving Place and, it's still there, and Clawson Avenue. Even had a blue, because that's where I first learned to bowl. I used to go down there with my mother and her friends, and we bowled down there. Had a couple of alleys. And Miles, when Miles was living in Brooklyn at the time, and Max, and they were trying to maybe set up some kind of recording facility there, which I think never got off the ground. Because in those days, man, when you tried stuff like that, they come and break your kneecaps. It was, people who controlled the business at the time, that kind of stuff was going on in Brooklyn, because like I said, a lot of cats lived in Brooklyn. Miles lived in Brooklyn up on Herkimer Street, because I remember his daughter asking me, she said, isn't there a street like Herkimer Street? Because I think that's where we live, you know. And so all of those cats were there, you know, and the periphery of people around them. There was somebody just recently asked me, I think Kenny Durham's daughter asked about somebody who used to sew for them. It was a guy named Ellie Clark, who was a master tailor, who used to sew for Max and Kenny, all those like slick suits and stuff that Max used to wear in the 60s and up until maybe late 60s or whatnot, were fashioned by this brother Ellie Clark, who was a fashion designer who just never was able to get out of Brooklyn, you know. But as their music and art was, his clothing was like that and art, you know. Because I even have a couple of pieces, or I had a couple of pieces of Ellie Clark stuff that were hand-me-down from my cousin, because my cousin used to sew, and he interned with this brother. So there was a lot of stuff going on around our music and art, and hopefully it still is in Brooklyn.
Thank you. So it seems like, you know, we were getting a question still about the East, and like for Marilyn, Voight Downey was asking who set up the East and when. But I wanted to tack my question onto that, to ask if you wanted to, you know, if I was a person who's a newcomer to the subject matter and I wanted to start somewhere, like to read about it and do some research, like where would you recommend I look? I wanted to learn more about this piece of the jazz history.
Well, I mean, as far as the East goes, you know, at this point, there are 2 books written specifically about the East. First edition is called Truth's Crust to the Earth Will Rise Again. The next one is A View from the East, which was actually the name of a column that we had in our publication, Black News, which you probably saw a cover. As I said, I was the editor from 1974 until 1979. Also, in regards to that, the next one, A View from the East, both are by a gentleman who is a professor within CUNY. I think he's probably still in CUNY, whose name is Kwesi Kanadu. I'll put that in the chat for folks or whatever. You can look at it. You know, those are the books so far. We celebrated the 50th anniversary of the East in May of 2019. There was a commemorative journal. I don't know if that commemorative journal is still available. As a matter of fact, one of the last things that you saw in the little video that I had put together was the cover of that, and featured on the cover was G2AUC, Leslie R. Campbell, who, along, as I said, with folks from Ocean Hill, Brownsville, and other places, and the students, the African American Students Association. They were the ones who came together and established the East, coming out of the struggle for community control in Ocean Hill, Brownsville. And, you know, that's the reality. So when, as I said earlier, when that failed, when it was clear that the Board of Miseducation would not allow self-determination in communities of color, and this was at that time, there were several so-called demonstration districts that had been formed. There was Ocean Hill, Brownsville in Brooklyn. There was 2 bridges or twin bridges in Lower Manhattan, and there was IS 201 in East Harlem. Those were the 3 demonstration districts, and they were supposed to provide some kinds of self-determination and community control for parents and students and teachers. And that was not to happen. When it was clear that there was a betrayal and that would not take place, is that G2 and the students and other adults I had mentioned. I need to mention people like Herman Ferguson. I don't think I mentioned him. I mentioned Connie Hicks, who later married Herman Ferguson, and I mentioned Al Van, who later, as we know, went into electoral politics. But they came out and supported this effort to build our own institution. And one of the institutions that was part of the East was Uhuru Sasa, which became the largest independent Black school in the country. And out of that, numbers of other people around the country decided to form independent schools as well. And a national organization, which still exists, was formed called CBCIBI, the Council of Independent Black Institutions. There's a lot more I could say, but again, this is not about the East per se, it's about the music. So let me stop.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any final thoughts before we close out this evening's program?
Yeah, there's a story, and I hope Basir doesn't mind telling it again briefly about being at Slugs on the eve of Dr. King's unfortunate murder when Cecil Taylor was playing, and it's always inspirational about the impact of music. If you don't mind, I'm sorry.
No, it's cool. Ed was talking about being at Slugs. So anyway, one of the reasons why we could make Slugs is that we were students at New York University. So we were in the West Village, and of course Slugs was on the east side, but it wasn't that far. And when the weather was good, it wasn't too cold and not too much snow on the ground, we could actually walk over. So on April 4th, 1968, we had heard that Dr. King had been assassinated. We were in the lunchroom, and many of us were kind of figuring out what it was that we were going to go ahead and do. We weren't totally clear. We had some discussions, but I knew that Cecil Taylor was going to be performing at the East later that day. And I decided that in order to, kind of clear my head and figure out what was going to happen, that I was going to go over to Slugs. And I have to say that it was very clear that the musicians were seriously angry as to what had happened. Cecil Taylor tore the poor Slugs piano to pieces. I mean, he just tore the piano up. I don't think any piano tuner was going to be able to ever put that piano back in tune. Frank Wright was playing tenor with the group at that particular time, and he just at one particular point was playing and started running in place as he played. And I mean, the music was, it was so reflective of what had happened. I have to say, that after that went on, and the next day, many of us at New York University were ready for battle. We shut the school down. We had a strike that lasted for quite a while. It was, it was quite tumultuous on so many different kinds of levels. A number of people could even talk to it. When you start thinking about it, it was just, that was a very, very important time. 1968, if you go and think about 1968, so many things happened during that particular year, not only here in the United States, not only here in New York, but around the world. And of course, the assassination of Dr. King was part of that. And those of us who were not necessarily advocates for pacifism, we're not advocates for nonviolence, that we were advocates for active self-defense, that, we were just amazed by the fact that, this government would be in a particular position where they felt that they could assassinate somebody who was an advocate for some kind of peaceful, transition into a time when we would experience, enhanced human rights. So, after that, we did what we had to do.
When he started talking about money, that changed the game.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Money in Vietnam.
Right on, yeah. And well, this has been a great discussion. We're going to close out right now, but there's going to be more in the future. And I was wondering if Mr. Drayton had any last words, but I want to thank Samantha and very much for everything she's been doing, and the MayDay Space for hosting this, and for all their work they're doing in general, and to the great Ed Rhodes, one of my teachers, and Mr. Basir Mchawi, another one, and Mr. Bernard Drayton, three great teachers providing a great learning experience right now, and there's going to be more. And Ed, did you want to ask Mr. Drayton a question to close, or do you want to close? Okay. Any last words?
Hey man, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad y'all are here, because this is how we share this, and I'm glad that I have people to be able to receive this information that can do something with it. And so I don't mind sharing. In fact, I'm glad to be able to share it, because for me, holding on to this and not being able to disseminate any of this is a waste of my life and other people's lives. So thank you. And thank you for the platform, and for those that are dedicated to keeping this happening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Props to Sam and Josh and Rahel.
Yes.
Happy to provide the platform.
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely. Sam, Rahel and Josh,
Yes.
MayDay Space, Ras for going ahead and asking us to go ahead and do this. We try to make ourselves available, so, you provide the, you provide the platform, and, we'll be around to, run our mouths and try to share some information with folks.
Well, I really.
And it's recorded though.
Yeah, rest in peace, Milford Graves.
Indeed.
Yes.
Indeed.
Definitely.
Yes.
Professor Graves.
Okay, so I'm going to close this out. First, I would love to thank our wonderful speakers for this just treasure trove of information that you've imparted upon us tonight. Like, I can't even begin to describe the feeling. All I can describe it as is just like, for those couple of hours, I really felt like I was transported to another time. And, I just got to step out of like this space I'm in right now and just be in your memory. It was very magical. So I thank you for that. And, folks, if you want to continue to support artists and historians who come here and share their stories and their work, you can always reach out to them. Bernard, Ed Rhodes, Basir, Ras, would you like to take a minute and just let the folks know how they can support you if they'd like to make additional contributions for the wonderful work you did tonight? You're good? Okay.
We're good.
Okay.
We're good.
Well, I usually post events on my Facebook page, and I have something coming up myself on March 14th for the One Breath Rising group, which is run by Joy Rosenthal, who was very close with Makonda Ken McIntyre, who now does with a number of other people, E.J. Antonio, Abby London, and a few others, a monthly series of poetry and music for One Breath Rising. So there'll be news about that coming up soon on March 14th. And I'm going to be doing something with Andrew Drury, who's listening, who's going to be doing some documentation. I'm going to be doing some outside playing in East New York around some landmarks or maybe some other parts in Brooklyn. But other than that, I'd like to thank Basir Mchawi, Ed Rhodes, and Mr. Bernard Drayton for this very informative learning experience, without a doubt. You know, and there'll be more ahead, so stay tuned.
Definitely.
And let's get.
Yeah, let me just say, you know, people who want to, you know, try to stay in touch with, you know, some of the things that we do, I do. And, you know, I know, you know, I'll be providing, you know, my radio platform for, you know, Bernard and, you know, Ed to come on and we can have a conversation there. Education at the Crossroads is the name of the program on WBAI. That's 99.5 FM, streaming at WBAI.org. Normally on Thursdays at 8 p.m. This coming Thursday, I will not be there. I'm on a panel sponsored by the National Association of Black School Educators that particular evening, where I'll be talking about independent schools and, you know, be going more into Uhuru Sasa and what Uhuru Sasa was. On Facebook, you can check out a number of things. Education at the Crossroads is the Facebook page. And that's a good place to go ahead and get information about what I'm doing and what's going on with the show and other things. So as an example, you know, this event was definitely posted there. And I hope, not hopefully, but some people did definitely respond.
Thank you. So, you know, in order for MayDay Space to continue to put on events like this, as we're trying to keep ourselves open in this pandemic, as we're not able to fully open our space yet, we've been trying to supplant this with virtual events, and we really enjoy being able to, you know, build out our platform and continue to build relationships with our allies here, but also just to create this wonderful programming, and our staff, you know, largely supports that. So, and that can continue with your support. So there are many ways you can support us. Of course, you know, you can follow us on social media, build out our community in the online space. Our Instagram is at MayDay Space, one word, and we're also easily searchable on Facebook. So like I said before, we have a very small staff, and the majority of the work done within our space is through the coordinated efforts and donations of our friends and comrades like yourself. So you can either make a one-time donation through Venmo, which would be at MayDay-Space, or you can go to the With Friends link through the event link that you use to sign up for this event. And there's like a monthly membership you can do if you want. There's some perks that are involved with the monthly membership. And of course, if you have any questions about anything we do at MayDay, you can email info@maydayspace.org. Yeah, I would be happy to answer your questions. If you're interested in maybe putting on an event yourself, let us know. Okay, this series is going to continue. On Thursday, we have an event coming up called Black Queer Archive Life. And this is going to be hosted by Stephen G. Fullwood from the Schomburg, who founded the Life Archive, who helped at the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture. And he's going to be discussing the development of that through the global Black LGBTQ community. And the discussion is going to be centering around that archive as a community archival project, and Black queer ancestry and why memory work matters. So we're just in continuing with preserving our histories and the different ways that it's being done. So today you experienced that oral history being passed down, and now on Thursday we're going to be talking about archiving that, a different part of our history here. So I hope that some of you are able to attend. And of course, if you have any questions about that, let me know. I'm going to drop the event link here for those of you who just may want to buy the ticket. And thank you to everyone. Again, I can't speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Pass it on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Definitely
Yeah.
will.
It's the only requirement coming from me.
Definitely.
Yes. Kulu say mama.
Mhm.
Yeah, man.
Meditation's essential. Yes.
Love supreme.
Love supreme.
One love.
Allah.
One
Peace
love.
out, y'all.
Yes. So I'm gonna stop this recording, Sam, and it'll give me a prompt on how to save it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Ras,
Yes.
you graduated in 18?
2018. Yeah.
Yeah, because my daughter graduated in that class.
Oh, okay.
She did a paper on what's going on
Mm-hmm.
for her.
You know, it's
back.
a small world because I think we had the same mentor. I think
Oh,
she
yeah?
came up. We were just talking about music with my mentor. She does a lot of music, and she mentioned, oh, the daughter of the person that recorded Coltrane's, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't know any details. She just mentioned that. It was as a coincidence.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
When you said that, I said, wow, man, because she just went back to school and just did that. And she did this paper on